It's 7 p.m., I've just finished dinner, and I think it's time to watch Netflix. Does this sound familiar? Because this is me a lot of the time. But is this the best thing for me? Is this the best thing for me to grow as a person, to get better as a person? I'm not sure if watching my second musical performance from Big Mouth of the night is really helping me grow. What about learning a new language, or writing a new blog post, or reading a book? Now, I think those things might help me grow more, right, than watching TV. I started this YouTube channel because of, during my free time a couple of years ago, instead of watching TV, this was again around 7 o'clock at night, 6 or 7 at night, I would just write down a couple scripts. And after a couple of weeks, I had written down 10 scripts for YouTube videos. In the past 3 years, I've read probably about 40 books. And I know that's not great numbers, but that's probably 2 times the amount of books that I read in the previous 24 years of my life. Learning, writing, and reading, I think, improved me much more than watching TV. So in this video, I'll give you 17 things to do instead of watching TV. So the first thing to do is take an online class. Taking classes and learning on the internet is one of the best inventions of the internet. Recently, I've been going through a course on ancient philosophy from MIT OpenCourseWare. And here are some other great locations to learn online on the internet for free. There's Khan Academy, which is my most used online resource for learning ever. It saved me in physics, it saved me in calculus, it saved me throughout pretty much all of college. edX offers many courses from top universities like Harvard that are primarily free. Cosmo Learning has excellent full-length video courses on physics, mathematics, pretty much anything you could want. Coursera is a popular option on the internet, and it's primarily free. One I checked out recently, which is pretty cool, was a Duke course, a course from Duke University, on how to reason and argue. Another good one is The Science of Well-Being from Yale, and again, these are both free from Coursera. The next thing to do is create a website. I know it sounds really scary, but creating a website and starting a YouTube channel really have changed my life. Building a website on the internet right now is insanely simple and easy. And you can start posting about literally like whatever you want. And trust me, no one's gonna look at it in the very beginning. No one cares what you're posting about in the beginning. It's a great place to practice writing and consolidating information and kind of getting your face on the internet. Many people I know aren't like content creators or anything like that. They just use them as their resumes. And isn't that great? Like, you can just be like, oh, check out my resume. Here's my website. It's my name. So initially what you could do is just create a website that's your name or some title or whatever, and have a section that's like an about me section about who the person writing the website is, an articles section, and then I would also have like a resources section, like a section of all the things you use to create whatever content or write whatever you do. Then all you do is just slowly start posting things that interest you, post things that excite you. Again, no one's going to be reading it in the beginning, so it's mainly just going to be for you. If you like photography, bam, put albums of your favorite photos that you ever took. If you're an artist, bam, put up your favorite drawings or things that you like to draw. If you're an economist or you're a finance person, start writing articles about interesting things in finance that you like to talk about. Are you a computer scientist? Display some cool projects or cool code you've been working on. So here's how I would create a website today. Register your domain on Google Domains, sign up for WP Engine. I do have an affiliate link below, but I just signed up for them in the beginning because they're the most reliable, fast, and secure hosting service that I've ever used. Then all you do is pick a WordPress theme and install it. Create a resources page, a home page, an about page, and an articles page. And then start trying to make one post a week. Maybe you post a collection of photos you took. Maybe you post an article a week. Post anything, but try and post like once a week. And I used this exact strategy when I was making my website. When I first started my website, I created an about me section, which is just my home page. Actually, it says who I am and what I do. I have a resource section which talks about all the YouTube gear I use, what books I like to read, all this kind of stuff. And then I have an articles section which I have tons of articles, including kind of like every YouTube video has an article associated with it. And I also have kind of my book notes on books I've been reading recently that I like or dislike. What are the benefits of having a website? Well, for me, my website gets about 10K visitor months, which is pretty good, but I don't really make that much money from it. Maybe the occasional affiliate link click, but really nothing crazy from it. I think the true power of the website comes from having a place for your fans or people on the internet or whoever to come kind of see you and what you created. I have a place where potential fans can learn more about me, potential employers can learn more about me in a well-organized, creative, and I think cool way. Even better, I think there's a great power in building in public, showing what you create in public. I think everyone in the world should have their own website. Everyone is unique and everyone has something unique to contribute to the world. The number 3 thing to do instead of watching TV is to meditate. Meditation is one of the few things that has actually changed my life over the past couple of years. Mainly because it's changed kind of the way I think and how I manage stressful situations. And also in any place at any time, anywhere, I can just meditate by just, going inside my head. Ways to start meditating is just set a timer on your phone for 5 to 20 minutes when you first wake up in the morning. Another way is to use Insight Timer, which is a free kind of meditation application you can get on your phone. And the best paid resources I like are Calm or Headspace. They provide pretty good guidance, and the audio quality is just kind of awesome on a lot of them. When I first started meditating, I personally liked kind of the individual lessons for every single day, but you can start with free trials for both of them. Again, they're not sponsoring this video, or there's no affiliate links for them either. I just really like them. The number 4 thing to do instead of watching TV is to go for a hike. In 2019, the journal Nature released a really cool article looking at 20,000 adults and their time in nature. Get it? They're being punny. They found at least 120 minutes of outside time to be associated with subjective better feelings of well-being. And also you get a peak association at around 200 to 300 minutes of outside time per week. And here's a quote from their introduction section of that paper. While the quantity and quality of evidence varies across outcomes, living in greener urban areas is associated with lower probabilities of cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, asthma, hospitalization, mental stress, and ultimately mortality among adults, and lower risks of obesity and myopia in children. Greater quantities of neighborhood nature are also associated with better self-reported health and subjective well-being in adults, and improved birth outcomes and cognitive development in children. And hiking is a great way to get that outdoors time, a great way to get that around 200 minutes of time. You could get it in just one morning of going for a long hike outside. I'll link to some cool resources and websites below, but one good application is called All Trails, and you can search for like hiking trails near you, and they have rankings and reviews, and it's cool. Thing number 5 instead of TV is to clean your apartment. A clean work environment will help you focus and do more things and be more relaxed. I spend about 15 minutes before I go to bed every night to clean up my apartment because I like to wake up to a clean space so I can get my best work done. There's a great book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, which I recommend you check out. There's also good resources on the internet for how to kind of clean up your place, which I'll link below. Tip number 6 is to cook something great. Cooking saves money, usually makes tastier food, usually makes healthier food, improves your quality of life, and usually also improves the quality of life of people around you. So get cooking. If you've never cooked before, try to think of something that you really like to eat, and I bet you can cook it pretty easily. Then just Google a recipe and try it. You will probably mess up and create some awful things. I've created some really nasty things, but you might create something really, really nice. The best place for free internet recipes and sources of how to cook on the internet, I think Binging with Babish is fantastic. I really like Serious Eats, I like Budget Bites, and I like All Recipes. I have a couple cookbooks which I really like. I really like Cooking for Two. I like the Wagamama restaurant cookbook recipe thing, which is really, really great. And I also like the fancy frou-frou old-fashioned book, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. And I'll also list my 2 favorite recipes in a Google Doc. I'll just write them up later. But my 2 favorite recipes that I cook on my own, and I cook these 2 things every single week because they reheat very well, and they're also just really tasty. And that's a chicken stir-fry recipe and also a vegetable curry recipe. And both these things are also pretty healthy. I'll link those below. Thing number 7 you can do instead of watching TV is try the dreamlining exercise. The idea of the dreamlining exercise is to try and figure out your dream life. The problem I think many of us face is we're just coasting through a lot of things in life, and work, at home, in whatever hobbies we're doing, in anything. Now, we don't need to have an end goal in mind, what the end of our life is going to look like, what our whole life is going to look like. I don't know what my life's going to look like, but we should have a general goal in mind, an idea of what, if everything went perfectly, would happen. The sneakily cool thing about this exercise is that you realize that your dreams are possible. The activity takes anywhere from 1 to 5 hours, but can have life-changing effects. So what do you do? How do you do the dreamlining exercise? Well, you outline things you want to have, things you want to be doing, and things you want to be. And then you kind of correlate, okay, how much will doing these things cost, and how can I actually accomplish these things over time? There are very detailed guides from Tim Ferriss and also Spartan Traveler, which I'll link down below, which you can check out. Tip number 8, and this is one of those sneakily amazing things, is writing in a journal. And this is one of those things where the outcome is worth 10 times the effort. And again, these are the same things I've experienced from proper exercise, proper sleep, and meditation. But what do you write about? You can write about anything. Just have a consistent time where you write in your journal. What I do is I have kind of 3 or 4 things that I write in my journal. The first thing is I write down one big priority for the day, the one big thing I want to accomplish. The second thing I write down is 2 things I am grateful for. Like maybe I'm grateful for living in a really cool city and being safe and having access to food. Okay, that's 3 things, whatever. And tip number 3 is maybe writing down 3 smaller things you want to accomplish, like finish doing the laundry, get your dry cleaning, or cook this meal. And then the 4th thing I do is kind of a brain dump. So it's just the journal in the classic sense of the word, writing down whatever I think, my thoughts for the day, what I'm going to do, just writing down whatever I want. And here are a couple benefits of having the journal. One is that just a brain dump. Anything stressing you out, maybe even things you weren't realizing were in your head, will just appear on the page as you start writing. And just like the other dump, after you've completed this, you will feel a lot better. The next benefit is organization. What is the biggest priority in your mind? What are the other things you need to do? Maybe it'll help you organize those things better if you actually write them down on the page. And the next thing, the next benefit, and this is the most fun benefit, is just nostalgia. I remember I started writing occasionally in a journal like 5 years ago, and I was just looking through some entries from older Zach, like when he first got admitted to medical school, or like when something really cool happened, and it's just fun to see kind of what my thoughts were back in the day, like what 23-year-old Zach was when he first got into medical school, or like what 25-year-old Zach was like when he had his first clinical experience, or when I got 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's just cool to read those thoughts that I had written down. For the sake of this reason, it's worth it to just keep a journal. The best way I've been consistent with this is habit stacking it with something else. So my 3 habit stack in the morning, I always shower in the morning. So after that, I meditate, and then after I meditate, I write in my journal. Tip number 9 is to learn to code. As a newer internet creator, I was surprised at kind of how much coding comes into play when like creating my website or kind of just figuring things out on the internet. Now I use it mostly right now for kind of designing my website, setting up my email newsletter, and things like that. But those have saved me so much time and effort, from like reaching out to customer support or even hiring a professional coder to kind of fix my website. The best way that I started to actually learn to code and get a lot better at coding, even though I'm really still trash at coding, was free code camp. Again, they're not sponsoring this. They're completely free, but it is the best resource I have found for kind of web development in the very beginning. And currently I'm still going through this entire website, but it's awesome. It's great. I love it that there's little challenges and little exercises, because that's the way I learn best, as opposed to just watching a guy like lecture or talk through his code. Tip number 10 is, instead of watching TV, do an online yoga class. Really, you can do any exercise class, but especially over the COVID pandemic and stuff like that, I really like to do kind of a 60-minute yoga class or a 30-minute yoga class. Again, doing something is 100 times better than doing nothing. Just pick an exercise class online and do it. I'll link to my favorite yoga courses down below. There's a 60-minute one by this guy named Travis, and another 30-minute one by this guy named Travis, I think, too. And these are power yoga courses, so they're more kind of active and will make you sweat a little bit more, but I think those ones are usually better, for me at least. Otherwise, there's this good application called Fitness Blender, which has nice free HIIT workouts, which are just high intensity interval training. Thing number 11, instead of watching TV, is to become a tourist wherever you live. There are a couple of ways to do this. You could just literally leave your apartment or your house and just walk around, assuming you're in a safe place, of course. Or the best way to do it is to look on certain resources on the internet and see what the tourists do around where you live. The best one probably is Time Out. The reason this one is probably the best is because it also has events that are happening at that certain time. So maybe certain things only happening during the summer or during the winter or at whatever time. That's probably the best place to look for these resources, and that's how I became a tourist in Philly, even though I live here. But you living wherever you are probably know the best outlet, the best media outlet to look up these things. So just look up these kind of events in the city or events wherever you live and just go attend some of them. Other good resources are TripAdvisor and Earth Trekker. So thing number 13 you can do is organize your computer and email. I am at inbox 0, however getting there was not easy. I remember what I did eventually is I just deleted everything that was a year or more late or a year or more kind of old, and then started to go through every single email before then, categorizing and kind of deleting things that I didn't need to have in my inbox. I'll link a couple good guides to actually going through this, but it's really helpful actually to have a very small inbox. That way you can be more organized with your emails, which is kind of, I think, one of the primary ways we communicate nowadays. The second step, number 2, or the second thing I do, is I organize my Mac in my like hard drive space. But for the Mac, I just go to the Apple icon on the top left. I go to About This Mac, Storage, Manage, then I look at the documents on the left and delete anything that seems unnecessary or I haven't opened in the past year. The next thing I like to do on my Mac if I'm organizing my computer is make sure all the documents and files and things like that are organized. So what I do again is I check my downloads folder and delete or move any files. There should be nothing in that downloads folder after that. And I also go to my documents folder and organize everything under 3 major categories, either personal, school, or YouTube. And then I have sub-organization within those files. So for example, school, I went to George Washington University, I went to Penn, I have my Jefferson career right now, so I have all those sub-organization files under that. And even under Jefferson, right, I have first year, second year, third year, fourth year of med school. Finally, there's this little tab on the left of your Finder window on Mac that lets you organize kind of your favorites and the things that appear there. I like to show documents, Jefferson, applications, desktop, and downloads. Tip number 14 is instead of watching TV, play an instrument. Playing an instrument can improve creative skills and cognitive functioning. Anecdotally, I know that like most of my smartest friends all played an instrument growing up. If you don't play an instrument or don't know how to play an instrument, that's okay. And my instrument of choice is the guitar. I think you can actually see it back right there, and I just started picking that up in college, and it's still fun to this day. Again, studies show that we want things to be about 85% easy, so we should 85% of the time kind of know what's going on. This applies to playing an instrument, and 15% of the time we should not know or we should be challenged. So in the general feeling sense, that feels like for me, okay, I pretty much know what's going on, but occasionally I'm challenged. And unfortunately, I can't give you guides for learning other instruments because I don't know how to play any other instruments, but for guitar, the best places on the internet I've learned to play guitar are Justin Guitar and YouTube, of course. The number 15 thing you can do is update your finances. Simply get a general sense of how much you are spending, where you are spending that money, and what your income is. I'm not saying necessarily you need to budget or cut things out or do whatever. I'm just saying get a general sense of where the actual money is going. Then if you run any kind of personal business or any business, it may make sense to do this check more frequently. For example, I have a business that under it all my YouTube stuff and all my income and all this kind of stuff goes through, and that's called Zach Highley LLC. So for anything related to YouTube or my website or kind of creating stuff on the internet, everything goes through that. So I should be a little bit more stringent when I check that. So if you have your own business or something like that, you can check that. Really, the only tool you need is Excel to kind of figure out these finances. I like to use QuickBooks just for kind of my business stuff, but I also use it now for a little bit of personal stuff as well. Thing number 16 to do instead of watching TV is create a cool reading stream of awesome blogs. I remember a couple of years ago, I thought it was just silly, like people were reading blogs on the internet. I didn't even know if people read blogs on the internet. But later I realized that some of the smartest people on the internet are posting their thoughts and their ideas on the internet completely for free. I feel like it's like a whole new world has been opened up to me. So my favorite newsletters that I read right now, I love Nat Eliason's newsletter, I love Ali Abdal's newsletter, and I love Seth Godin's newsletter right now. My favorite blogs are, I like Zen Habits, Derek Sivers, Oliver Emberton, Get Rich Slowly, C. Dixon, Mark Manson, Paul Graham's essays, Sam Altman, The Technium, Wait But Why, and Wisebread. Those are my favorite blogs that I'm reading right now. You gotta be careful here because you can accumulate a ton of blogs and a ton of posts, and then you end up not actually reading them because there's so much. So figure out who you like, whose writing you like, and then just start to read them occasionally. Finally, tip number 17 is to read instead of watching TV. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. And reading does a couple of things beyond actually the information in the books. It improves your writing ability, it improves your critical thinking ability, it improves your focus, and it improves your communication skills. My habit right now is I read for about 30 minutes to 1 hour before I go to bed every night, usually at around 7 o'clock. I also spend at least one long morning, usually on the weekends, hopefully outside in nature, just reading a lot. And I'm always reading one nonfiction book and one fiction book. Usually I read the fiction book before I go to bed to kind of calm my brain down a little bit, and then one nonfiction book either on those early mornings or in the first part of my nighttime reading. But if a book bores me or I really don't like it, I just stop reading it. Life's too short. And my reading rate in the past couple of years has improved dramatically to about, I used to read about one book a year, but now I read about probably one book every 3 weeks, which is, for me, it's pretty good. I also have a list on my website with my favorite books I've ever read that you can check out. However, I think there are a couple of great lists on the internet with the 100 best books to read all time and those kind of things, and I'll link those down below. But the most important thing is just start a reading habit. Read whatever you're interested in. That's the way I kind of ramped up my reading. I started reading fun books that I really like to read. Like I read the Red Rising series, the Mistborn trilogy, which is awesome, the Harry Potter books. All those are great ways to kind of get your reading habit started. And then you can start to introduce more nonfiction books, more like learny kind of books. But I always have a fun fiction book going on in the background because I want to do this for fun still, as well as learning a little bit more about life and history and all that blah, blah, blah stuff. Recently, actually, I've discovered this kind of cool application that really has the best book summaries on the internet. And it's made my reading habit much, much better. And the application that has this next level summaries is Shortform. And Shortform are actually sponsoring this video, so thank you so much, Shortform, for sponsoring me. But I was actually using Shortform before they even reached out to me to kind of sponsor one of my videos because of just how organized and well made the summaries are. But the reason I would pay money for a Shortform subscription is because of the next part of the summary of books that it has, which is a very detailed description of every single section of the book. For example, the 4-hour workweek summary is like 59 pages, which is insane. The other time I use Shortform, and this is really the main time I use Shortform, is to solidify my learning and retention of a book's information after I've read it. So when I'm reading a book, I'm usually taking little notes and little underlines and stuff like that during the book, and then I put all those little notes and underlines into a Notion document. So then what I can do when I want to learn about the general points or general ideas of a book again, I'll go into that Notion thing. I'll have the whole short form summary, which is amazing, and then also my little notes and personal quotes that I took down. So if you want to check out Shortform completely free for 5 days, because I know you want people like to try it out and see what it's like, and get a 20% discount on an annual subscription, head to my special link, which is just shortform.com/Zach with an H, not a K. With an H. Okay, but that is it. That is the end of this video. Hopefully you found one thing to do instead of watching TV. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.